everyone! So today I'm here to review the Kat Von D Everlasting Liquid Lipsticks. They individually retail for $20 US, $24 in Canada, they contain 0.12 ounces of product, and they're available in 28 shades. As some of you may know, the brand recently introduced 16 new permanent shades into the line, and those are what I'm going to be reviewing today, although I only have 14 of the 16. They are said to be a long wear, full coverage liquid lipstick with a smooth matte finish. The packaging is a long, thin plastic tube with a standard velvety doe foot applicator. Depending on the size of your lips, I feel the applicator holds the perfect amount of product in one go to cover your entire mouth evenly and easily. It does a great job of applying color cleanly, but for those looking for total control and precision, you could definitely apply these with a lip brush instead. These lipsticks also have no scent or taste that I could notice. Across the board, the formula is highly pigmented and dries within 20 to 40 seconds of application. During dry time, you will want to avoid pressing your lips together, as this will likely cause the color to lift in some areas that aren't dry yet, and it could make your lipstick look patchy, uneven, or streaky. Like with most liquid lipsticks, the color does cling to your lips, but it never feels overly drying or uncomfortable. They typically wear 6 to 10 hours on their own, but layering products over top of them like a gloss can cause the wear time to be cut down drastically, but they do look lovely with a gloss paired over top. Ayesha is a medium purple mauve with cool undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, mostly even, and for the most part opaque. It had good pigmentation, but I did notice that my natural lip color did show through ever so slightly in some areas, especially once the product started to fade over time. Regardless to that, it was never streaky or patchy though. Ayesha wore well for 7 hours before fading. In comparison, MAC's Men Love Mystery was lighter, brighter, warmer, and more pink. Bow and Arrow is a medium muted brown beige with warm undertones and a matte finish. It is also the shade I currently have on today. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, fully opaque, and had full, rich pigmentation. It had excellent performance throughout wear. It wasn't streaky or patchy once dry, and it didn't crack or flake over time. This shade performed really nicely. Bow and Arrow wore well for 7.5 hours before fading. In comparison, Kat Von D's Lolita was warmer and more pink. MAC's Stone was darker, cooler, and more gray. MAC's Velvet Teddy was lighter, warmer, and more peach. And MAC's Whirl was darker, warmer, and more brown. Damned is a deep darkened burgundy with cool undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, semi-even, and mostly opaque. It was definitely a trickier shade to apply due to its darker nature. It liked to appear darker in some areas, lighter in other areas, etc., even with properly, fully prepped lips. I've heard a lot of people say that this shade did not work for them at all, and it was a horrible, streaky, patchy mess, so I was honestly surprised that I didn't have that many issues with this lipstick. It actually ended up working pretty okay for me. Damned wore well for 7.5 hours and left behind a stain. In comparison, Kat Von D's Homegirl is brighter and less opaque. Kat Von D's Motorhead is brighter, more red, and less opaque. Kat Von D's Exorcism is lighter, cooler, and more plum toned. MAC's Antique Velvet is lighter and more brown toned. And MAC's Sin is brighter, warmer, and more red. Double Dare is a medium dusty coral with warm undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, and had opaque color payoff. This was another shade that had excellent performance throughout wear. It wasn't streaky or patchy at all once applied, and it didn't crack or flake once dry. Double Dare wore well for 7.5 hours before fading. In comparison, Kat Von D's Lolita was more muted and brown toned. Echo is a darkened royal blue with hints of purple, cool undertones, and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, mostly even, and opaque. It was a slightly more difficult shade to apply since it did like to be lighter and more sheer in certain areas, but I found that the quicker that you apply the shade, the more opaque the coverage will be. And of course, you can always go back in and fix any mistakes or sheer areas to up the vibrancy of it once the product has dried. Echo wore well for 7.5 hours before fading. In comparison, MAC's Matte Royal was brighter and leaned more purple. Exorcism is a medium to dark red plum with cool undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, mostly even, and opaque. While it had nice pigmentation, it did appear darker in some areas, but it honestly wasn't nearly as noticeable or as troublesome as a shade like Damned. It did tend to be lightly darker in some areas, but it was surprisingly a very easy shade to work with. Exorcism wore well for 7.5 hours and left behind a stain. In comparison, Kat Von D Damned is darker and more red. Kat Von D's Homegirl was brighter, warmer, and more red, and MAC's Instigator later was cooler and more purple. Lovesick is a medium dusty rose pink with cool undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, and had nice opaque coverage. It had good pigmentation and the color wasn't patchy or streaky once applied. I also didn't experience any cracking or flaking once the product had dried. So once again, this was another good performing shade. Lovesick lasted 7 hours before fading. Melancholia is a light to medium pale bubblegum pink with warm undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, mostly even, and had opaque color payoff. While it was never streaky or patchy, my natural lip pigmentation did show through in some areas. I think that had to do mostly with the more pale nature of this shade. Melancholia lasted 6.5 hours and lightly cracked throughout wear. Mother is a medium watermelon pink with cool undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, and had ultra rich opaque pigmentation. The color coverage and performance of this specific shade was excellent. Once again, it wasn't patchy or streaky once dry, and it didn't flake or crack over time. This was probably my favorite shade of the new ones. Mother wore well for 8 hours before fading. Noble is a light pale peach with warm undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, mostly even, and semi-opaque. It seemed to have a thinner consistency and more sheer pigmentation, which caused my natural lip color to show through in some areas. But this could be easily corrected by layering a second coat on top once the product had fully dried for a more opaque coverage. In a whole though, this was a more troublesome shade to apply just due to its lighter nature. Noble wore well for 6 hours before fading. In comparison, the Kat Von D Noble lipstick was more muted and more pink. Nosferatu is a medium to dark crimson with warm undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, and had opaque color payoff. Once again, it wasn't streaky or patchy, and it didn't flake or crack over time. My only real complaint or downfall with this specific shade is it can end up looking darker in some areas in certain lighting, but it isn't. I think that mostly has to do with the state of your lips when you're applying this color. Nosferatu wore well for 8 hours and left behind a stain. In comparison, Kat Von D's Outlaw is brighter and more vivid. Mac's Studded Kiss is darker and warmer. Bite's Braised Maple was brighter and lighter. Bite's Mulled Maple was warmer and glossier. And Bite's Black Cherry was also warmer and glossier. Requiem is a muted pale lavender pink with cool undertones and an ultra matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, and had opaque pigmentation. Despite its lighter, more pale nature, the shade was surprisingly easy to apply. But it can end up looking streaky if you don't smooth the product across your lips fast enough and it begins to dry, or if you try and layer a second coat before the first is completely dry. Requiem wore well for 7 hours before fading. In comparison, Kat Von D's Coven is cooler and more purple. Susperia is a medium to dark purple fuchsia with warm undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, and semi-opaque. Once dry, there were a few areas that seemed a bit lighter, but it never caused my lips to look patchy or uneven or streaky. This shade was richly pigmented, and I so hardly appreciate that it's one solid color on the lips and doesn't separate like a shade like Love. Love is a purple color, but it tends to look more fuchsia around the edges, so I love that this shade is just one solid block color and there's no weird dual colors happening, if that makes any sense. Susperia wore well for 7.5 hours and left behind a stain. In comparison, the Kat Von D Love liquid lipstick is brighter, more vivid, and pink, and the Kat Von D Love lipstick is cooler, more purple, and less pigmented. Witches is a dark true black with cool undertones and a matte finish. This shade applied smoothly, evenly, and had rich, opaque pigmentation. This shade was surprisingly easy to work with for being a matte black lipstick. Once again, I found that the faster you spread the product across your lips, the more even and opaque the coverage will be. But for any areas that are more sheer, you can go back in once the product has dried completely and touch up any areas that you need. Witches wore well for 8 hours and left behind a stain. In comparison, MAC's Haute Couture was similar but less pigmented, and Kat Von D's Slayer was similar but way less pigmented. So overall, that was a lot of shades to go through. The additional colors were a really nice, long-awaited surprise, and I really hope to see Kat Von D release more unique shades and finishes into this already phenomenal line of lipsticks. So there's not really much more for me to say about these liquid lipsticks besides the fact that they are my absolute favorite go-to of all time out of any brand. I love these liquid lipsticks a lot. So of course, with that said, I do highly recommend checking them out if you haven't already. And be sure to let me know in the comments below if you picked any of these up, which shades caught your eye, or just in general, what your opinion on liquid lipsticks are. Are you a fan of liquid lipsticks? Let me know. As always, don't forget to check out my blog for more details, photos, and swatches, as well as like, comment, and subscribe to show your support. If you'd like to give me a follow, I will have all of my social media listed here, as well as down in the description. As I always say, I hope you found this review incredibly helpful, and I hope that you're having a fantastic day, and thank you so much for watching.